Our schools, our communities, our future. On March 5th, 2024, the residents of Montgomery County joined together and voted to renew the county's 3.5 millage tax. This successful renewal supports not only Montgomery Public Schools, but Pike Road Schools as well. The support of this tax allows both school systems to continue to provide quality education and the resources necessary for our students to be successful. Thank you, Montgomery County, for believing in our future.
The March 12 regular business meeting of the Montgomery County Board of Education is called to order. We ask that you please mute all electronic devices. At this time, I invite Dr. Neil Epler from Fraser Church to come and bring our invocation. Pastor Epler.
There. I just want to say, on a personal note, that I pray for our schools daily, for our teachers, for leaders, for administrators, everyone, and corporately as a church. We pray for the schools as well. We know how important they are. And so it's an honor for me to come and to open this meeting in prayer. May we pray together. Almighty God, we thank you for the gift of this day. We thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to come together and to talk about the importance of education in our schools here in Montgomery. I thank you for all of those present, for parents, for students, for teachers and leaders, and especially for those sitting here who are in positions of leadership for the Montgomery Public Schools. I ask, oh Lord, that you would bless them and encourage them. I pray, Lord, for all of us that you would give us your wisdom as we remember how Jesus loved little children and how he took them upon his knee and how he blessed them. So, Lord, we ask that you would help us to be a blessing to all of our students, all of our families here in this city. And we ask you, Lord, to guide our meeting tonight. Again, give us your wisdom and the strength that we need, the patience. Sometimes, Lord, the decisions are so difficult. So guide us, we pray. And again, we come before you with thankful hearts in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Dr. Epler. Will you please stand with us and pledge to the flag? Thank you. There are 7 members present. I declare that a quorum is present for the transaction of business. The agenda for today's meeting has been provided in advance for our review. If there is no objection to approving this agenda by unanimous consent, we would do that. Is there objection? Is there objection? Hearing no objection, the agenda is approved. Over the past few weeks, we have been very busy throughout the district here and on behalf of our school community. First, I would like to personally take this opportunity to thank our neighbors and our friends for supporting us with the 3.5, the renewal of that 3.5 school tax. It was a success, and we owe our gratitude to each of you, those of you who voted, those of you who advocated for those votes. Your belief in the work that we are trying to do is evident, and we do appreciate your continued support. We look forward to collaborating and working with you as we bring forth excellent programming throughout the district. Several board members participated in professional development 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago in Huntsville, Alabama. We explored equity issues through a poverty simulation that helped participants understand and empathize with families who are experiencing lack in resources. We were provided opportunities to look at the pros and cons of technological advances, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence, and what that looks like when it comes down to teaching and learning. We also looked at achievement and attendance issues across the state and in our local districts. Safety remains a priority, and that discussion flowed across all of the issues, whether they dealt with physical, mental, or technological concerns. So safety is a priority across the state and definitely in our district. Additionally, many of us participated in Read Across America activities. It was a joy to see you post on social media about your engagements with our various schools, teachers, and students. There are more opportunities to be had. Next week, several of our schools will be recognizing Women's History Month. And so those of you who might not have gotten a chance to read during Read Across America, many of our schools are inviting us to come back and highlight the works of phenomenal women. During Women's History Month, let us recognize and honor the remarkable contributions of all women who give and sacrifice in their own way to positively affect the lives of others. I salute the inspiring women that work with me on this school board and women throughout the district. I thank you for your work. To my fellow board members, your dedication, your leadership all play a pivotal role in shaping the educational landscape that fosters equity and inclusivity across our district and help to empower future generations. Again, I thank you. At this time, Ms. Jade Jones will bring our recognitions.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Brown, and board members. As Dr. Coleman just shared, MPS would like to express its sincere gratitude to the residents of Montgomery County. Last Tuesday is a true testament to our work building a stronger foundation for a future generation of students and preparing them for 21st century careers. Excuse me. Again, we thank you, Montgomery. Now, we can clap. Madam President, it is now my sincere honor to introduce to you an amazing and talented group of scholars on and off the court. Tonight, we have the pleasure of introducing 3 MPS basketball regional champions. First, we have the 6A ladies of Park Crossing that will join us right now. Coach. Yes, okay.
Okay. Hi, I'm Coach Smith. I've been at Park Crossing now for a couple of years. This is our second appearance at the Final Four. The girls you see in front of you have promised me that we'll be back next year, and they've promised me a ring. So I want to thank you guys for showing us some recognition. And donations are accepted.
Thank you, Park Crossing. Next, we have our 5A Brew Tech Lady Rams.
Ms. Jones.
I'm sorry. Yes, we can. I was going to do it after I introduced everyone. But you want to do it now? Come back up and come back down?
I'll let you go with your plan.
Okay.
I just am so proud of you.
I was just going to have y'all come down afterwards, but okay.
Thank you.
Next, we have our 5A Brew Tech Lady Rams with a record of 19 and 15. Lady Rams, if you'll join us.
Good evening. As she said, we're 5A champs. As you see, we only have 4 girls. We have softball players that play for us as well, so they had a game today. So, just thank you all for recognizing us and allowing the girls to come up and be recognized in front of everybody to see who they are, because they work real hard in the classroom and on the court. So, thanks again.
And Madam President, the gentlemen of Carver High School, which they're 6A, they're not with us tonight, but they'll join us next time. So now we'll go ahead and take the picture. So board, you can come down with the Lady Rams, and then we'll have Park Crossing join us after.
All of us are just the
Thank
If the
you.
board will come down, we'll bring the girls up. You have a preference on how you want to take the
No,
picture?
no, no, I just didn't know. I'm going by a lead.
Okay. right, that's perfect. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Thank you. Thank y'all. Again, we would like to thank our students for joining us tonight. Let's give them another round of applause. And Madam President, I just received a text message from our Teacher of the Year, Miss Jamie Phillips. She just found out that she won the Alabama Arts Alliance 2024 Outstanding Intermediate Arts Educator. And she is at McKee. That's the band director at McKee Middle, Miss Jamie Phillips.
Congratulations, Ms.
It's
Phillips.
good news all week, all week. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. At this time, we move to scheduled comments that will allow us to hear concerns from our constituents. We have one public comment for the afternoon. Mrs. Phaedra Foster will speak about it's time for a family district conference. Ms. Foster.
Good afternoon. I do want to point out that we have Alabama State PTA President Paula Lyman here in our presence. She is a longtime part of our district. So
Absolutely. Thank you and welcome.
thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. This message is about the need for a family district conference, but I was planning on asking for a different type of conference and citing different reasons than the ones that I will cite today. I spent last week in DC as part of the National PTA's Legislative Conference. This is a time when PTA advocates from around the country come together and meet with our U.S. senators and representatives to discuss pending legislation that might help make every child's potential a reality. I've often sat in these board meetings and listened to you ask parents to call lawmakers about different issues. I wanted to tell you about the initiatives that we talked about with congressional staff, like the call for safe storage of weapons to reduce gun violence against children, which is now the leading cause of death among school-aged children, or bills related to health, like a Fentanyl Education Act. I even bragged about our district in our debriefing with PTA leaders because there are discussions about creating a federal pilot program that restricts access to cell phones during the day for students. But yesterday, I received several emails threatening parent volunteers that their units will lose the right to use the name of their schools in the title of their PTA/PTSA units if they do not send in some documents. I cannot locate the specific board policy or state policy that states which information that our district is entitled to collect by law. However, I can put my hands on the email that I received when this district granted me and an intentionally diverse group of parents the right to use the name of the school in a PTSA unit that we were chartering. We had come together because we saw issues when it came to equity with family engagement, and we thought that organizing a PTA would have been the most constructive way to address that. We received pushback, and so we had to get we had the principal and his lead contact the state PTA office to tell us that we wouldn't be able to use the name of the school in our title. We've been through this issue before. So I am formally requesting a meeting with the chair of the board and the CFO to discuss the relationship between this district and our PTA units. I know that we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion all the time, but sending letters like that to parent volunteers is an impediment to getting them to volunteer to serve as officers in our unit. Thank you for your time and your attention to this matter.
Thank you. At this time, I want to open the floor for the discussion of the in-house attorney position. I think that we have made some progress, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Brown for engaging with us and giving us some latitude where it comes to the hiring of such a critical and important position. You have, colleagues, the finalist packets in front of you. They have been designated Candidate 1 and Candidate 2. That's how we will refer to them for now as we speak about them. And now is the time to discuss the candidates as we move forward toward filling this position. Is there a discussion?
I'll start. I still remain confused at the title. This is administrative certified. Am I to understand that this professional position would be a will be a classified position? And hold on. And I understood you to say Dr. Brown gave us latitude. What does that mean?
This position is hired upon the recommendation of the superintendent.
I hear you.
Okay, and we have moved forward rather persistently, and I'm a part of the persistence. We have wanted an in-house counsel for at least 5 years that I have been on this board. And to get to this point is progress, but in the process, we did learn that it is not a position that we move forward as we do the superintendent and the CSFO.
Okay, and that is in my discussion. That's a matter of opinion because you actually went backwards. This district has always hired the attorney. It did the last 2 attorneys the board had. The board hired those.
Okay, I don't know that history, but the
Yeah,
attorney,
I can assure you is correct.
the attorney that advised us gave us the statutes and how they read as far as hiring the superintendent, hiring the CSFO, and the fact that all other hires by the board are hired on the recommendation of the superintendent.
And then let me ask you another question because I did see it somewhere and I don't see it here. This is a probationary contract for this position. I read that. I think it was in your writing.
Yes, I think I received that information again from council.
Okay, whatever counsel this is, I wouldn't know one attorney that would take a position for a year. Dr. Brown wouldn't have took that. For a probationary year, for a professional position? So, and the reason I bring this up, are we doing ourselves just? Are we just getting somebody to check a box, or are we getting fair representation for the position we seek? We make a lot of decisions. We make a lot of decisions for parents, for children. We need to get this right and get it right the first time is what I'm saying.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly.
I mean, we have principals that have 3-year contracts. And so,
I think what I hear is what each of you want to see in the contract that we offer. And I'm sure we can have that conversation with Dr. Brown. But again, this hire is a staff position.
Okay, let's go back to that for just a second. Now, Dr. Brown hires this position, and something comes up. This person litigates against their own boss?
Can I interject?
What? Go right ahead.
For the record, I'm not really all that enamored by the process, and I'm happy to assist the board in making the recommendation that you're interested in doing, so I want to put that out there first. I gave no input in the process. That came strictly from council. I just want to put that on record. In terms of the position itself being a classified position that is probationary, that is a process we have for every administrator. We go through that process. That's how that looks essentially. I know there's some exceptions to that that would be brought out. I get that. At the same time, in terms of what that role would look like, it is a representation from the board. So from a personal standpoint, if there's something that comes up involving the superintendent, I would have my own counsel in that regard. That counsel person would belong to the district if that was such a situation. So they wouldn't litigate against me. However, if there was a situation where this person contested his or her employment, that would be the process that every employee would go through. So we would have additional counsel to represent us, while that person would represent themselves or have counsel for themselves. Does that answer? Okay.
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
Done. So, I think Lisa and I have been the longest on the board. Not that that gets us any brownie points, but it has been customary and precedented that the board, not the superintendent, the board makes the recommendation. We do it for the CSFO, legal counsel, as well as the superintendent. In fact, at the March 2nd Huntsville meeting that most of us attended, that was also brought up in the questioning of the process of how you evaluate your CSFOs and your superintendent. And I think we all heard it. The question or the statement was made to those two board members as to who they hire. And they said it was those three entities: superintendent, legal counsel, and CSFO. But I want to go back to a little bit. You said that you spoke to legal counsel. You spoke to AASB. AASB is the organization that provides us with the training on governance and all of that. The person you spoke to is a contracted attorney for AASB, not MPS. So when you say legal counsel, we need to make sure that we're getting information from legal counsel that represents our organization, because that would be a conflict for that legal counsel person to give us information on that end, and then on the other end to give whatever AASB stuff is, and then say, I'm giving you legal counsel, because you used the term, I spoke to legal counsel. That person is not our legal counsel.
She is not representing us. You are absolutely right. So what I should have said was I spoke with an attorney who is knowledgeable and who did share with us the statutes that were requested to substantiate the fact that we are hiring a person we were attempting to hire out of the norm. Now, I think the difference in hiring the attorney, as this conversation keeps evolving, is that we can hire, as a board, an attorney such as a Hill Carter that we currently use as the board attorney. But if we are hiring a staff attorney, that staff attorney should come at the recommendation of the superintendent.
So I wanted, real quick, and I promise I'll be quiet, Lisa, you've been so kind. So when we talk about in-house counsel, if that in-house counsel were to work for a department, because I also call several attorneys, in fact, I see an attorney in the audience. How you doing, Mr. Bell? I asked, are there circumstances in which boards can hire that a superintendent can hire a legal counsel? And it was reported to me, and I did this on a national scale. I spoke to some national attorneys because I wanted to get a really good picture from national organizations like AASB. And they said if the superintendent makes a recommendation, that attorney, that legal counsel, can serve in a department like human resources or something of that nature. That's in-house. They will report to the superintendent, which is not to be conflated with what we're doing. Our legal counsel is for the board because they represent the organization. They do not, now if it's in-house and they're over the human resource or whatever department, then they would, I agree, they would report to Dr. Brown. The statute is the next thing I want to talk about quickly. It was an old tenure law that was sent to us, as well as the Student First Act. In none of those did it ever mention that a superintendent could hire legal counsel. Hiring out of the norm, I don't really know what that means, because what we're doing is putting things back in order, where the board hires the legal counsel, just like we hired the CSFO and the superintendent. It is, and when checking references, I would say we not be a one-stop shop. We need to, just like when you go to the doctor and you're looking for a doctor, you go and you get references. Even if you are sick, you go and get a second opinion. So I think that we probably are, and because I'm not in charge of that, but on behalf of the board, multiple sources perhaps should have been tapped into to get accurate information. But I did want to, if you don't mind, and because I have Mr. Bell, and I do know he's an attorney, he's very familiar, if I'm not out of place, to ask him a question.
Well, this discussion is among us.
Okay, that's why I asked.
But to be honest, I'm not, I think the concern is about the contract that we would offer the attorney. Because I thought we were coming here to recommend someone to work with and for us. Yes.
Okay, if I may, I just want to, I think I can clarify things, because, you know, people say I say things that other people won't say but should be said. I want to bring up what both Ms. Portis and Erica brought up, that the council that y'all talk to is AASB. AASB is not our attorney. At the end of every letter they wrote, even the one we got yesterday, I've read this before in front of y'all at times when we've come to positions like this. It says clearly in bold print, the information provided by AASB and/or its agents or employees is not intended to be legal advice. Please consult with your local attorney for legal advice.
Okay.
I did not, I'm not finished, if you don't mind. We, you know, I think several board members, I'll admit I don't read my emails the day I get them. Sometimes it's the night or the next day, but sometimes I'll get, hey, go read your email. Read the email, and from my understanding, some of the other board members have contacted attorneys and people that wrote the checks to past attorneys. I know I spoke to an attorney yesterday, our past attorney from 5 years ago. The board hired her. And that, when you look at stuff like that, it's kind of like what Ms. Portis brought up. If you have, and y'all obviously went to a meeting in Huntsville where heads obviously turned, and it was almost, did y'all hear that? I wasn't there, but it clearly says the board has the power to do the CSFO, the superintendent, and legal counsel. And one thing that I learned yesterday that I was shocked, whether true or not, I would die if we didn't have a superintendent, and glad we have the superintendent that we have. But it said we don't even have to have, what we have to have is a CSFO. And so here's where I wanted to get to. Now, I wasn't beating around the bush, but this is what others wouldn't say. I went through this whole month, you know, feeling really good about things. I still feel really good about things. I'm excited about the tax thing. But we received a letter yesterday, which was brought to my attention by other board members to go read it. And it did come out in a way that it's, what I think we're confused as to who hires this council. And it was put to us, the way it came across, it may not have been intended, but the way some board members looked at that was the superintendent was the one that did the recommendation. And it was almost like it came across as he was doing us a favor. He was going to, you know, this person could come on, she or he could come on for 1 year. It would be probationary. And we're not going to, you're not, like she said, you're not even going to get a superintendent. If we looked at him and said, hey, you might be able to stay a year with us, sir. Nobody's coming here for that. So it was taken, what was sent to us yesterday, through talks or whatever, it was taken that power was being taken away from the board. And it didn't, to come in here and say, hey, this is what we're doing, it's almost like you're saying, this is what we're doing on these terms. And on these three positions, it's not on anybody else's terms, but in our terms, the board terms. And we have to all agree on that.
I do believe, thank you, I do believe that there is more latitude that can be granted, and if not, someone can correct me on that. I came in thinking that we were prepared to move forward. And I understand some of the concerns, and I think these things do need to be hashed out. But and I guess what I want to know is, do we plan to discuss candidates? But before we do that, Dr. Brown wanted to speak.
Yeah, I just
and
want to say
I
something.
interrupted.
Just for the record, because I'm getting the impression that some may think I'm pushing this. This has nothing to do with me. I'm not pushing anything. I was listening to the council and saying, okay, well, that's a process we'll use. I couldn't care less which process we use. If the board wants to hire the person, that's perfectly fine with me. If the legal advice says that I have to, I'll follow the board's guidance on that. So I want to just state that for the record, so there's no contentiousness where there is none necessary. This has nothing to do with me.
Let me go. That's wonderful, because that solves our problem. But Brenda, Dr. Coleman, you said that you were ready to move forward. We can't move forward. We've got to discuss this, take the time, because we don't talk until we're here. So now let's take the time, because I think now, hearing it, the catch is the title. If it's in-house, and I need representation as a board member, I don't want somebody in HR sitting, working for anybody. I need them on my case. So that's in-house, and that's right? In-house means that person reports to you and they're on staff somewhere.
I think we're splitting hairs in some regard. I don't know if there's any legal terminology about titles. In-house to me, and that's all about interpretation, to me that means district, like total district. That's what it looks
Okay,
like to me.
may I add something now?
Please, go ahead.
Read it.
I am on a committee that's working on our bylaws. I had contact with our contracted attorney. I'm not going to call that, attorney group. And it says that this is the way it's supposed to read, according to the Alabama Code. The superintendent shall be the secretary of the board as required by state statute, Alabama Code 1691. The board shall designate the chief school financial officer as a custodian of all funds of the school system, Alabama Code 1613A4. The board counsel may be legal and policy advisor to the board and school system, but to the board, to the superintendent, and to the chief school financial officer. But the board it's under the preview of the board. It's someone that works for the system but works for the board. Those three positions. You've got one you must have, the CSFO. You've got two you may have, must and may, shall and will. The superintendent and the board attorney is the will and the shall. The CSFO is the must and the have, will have. That's
And
Alabama Code.
I hope as we continue that we do recognize that we are functioning as a district. I am aware that we might have issues where there are concerns, superintendent against teacher, superintendent against board member against, someone. There are various scenarios, but again, we want someone who is going to be able to come in and represent this district and make certain that we are all very well taken care of.
But represent without prejudice or without having, that they have they are fully able to say what they need to say to whom they need to say it to, and do things that are helpful
And again, you get no dispute from me. So,
One of the benefits I remember in the board attorneys we did have was sometime Ramadan and them would sit for hours with the board because they weren't obligated. It wasn't that they weren't for the district. It wasn't that we're trying to say to defend us against the superintendent. That's not it. We just need them at our disposal. If we're writing policy, if we're doing the school business, they need to be with us and
Absolutely.
be available. We may need them to travel. When we went to Tampa last year, Detroit had their superintendent, their grant writer, their attorney, and all 7 board members at that meeting. And so they were able to sit together and talk together and plan together. But that person, if that person is a staff person and something else is going on, and it may sound like splitting hairs, I don't think it is. I think it's where this person would serve and being honest with them from the beginning, because the last thing we want to do is potentially hire someone and then later on say, oh no, you work over here and we're going to give you this cubicle and so the duties have to be made clear. And
I don't want anyone to feel like they're they have a doctorate, judicial is what it's called, JD, Juris Doctorate,
Yeah.
to feel like a secretary.
Yeah.
Well, I think the job description was, sort of detailed to the fact that they should not feel like they're clerical help.
Well, it was on your
On the letter yesterday, Dr. Coleman, it did make it look like it was reducing that position to clerical. And like the main thing I think here is if we want to move forward, we don't want to just go with this council that's, AASB. I mean, if people want to believe that, that's great, okay? But we've talked to too many other people that that's not the case. And I think we have to, before we move forward, make sure that this council is hired by the board and goes under what, a year, we want to set the tone. And that can be set, if it's not set tonight, it can be set in the bylaws. Because the bylaws, that's why we have bylaws, we at that point can make sure that the board is over those 3. If we don't care how long, if it takes another 2 months, we've already taken that long. We want to make sure, like he said, it doesn't matter. Well, I feel like this, and I believe you, okay? I believe you. If we could move forward and knowing that we were doing the hiring and that we weren't reducing to the clerical and they could, we want to move them forward. We don't want to, under what that letter said yesterday, we don't want to move forward because that's not the terms that we're happy with.
Go ahead.
Only for the record. It doesn't matter to me personally. I don't know what happens legally. It has nothing to do with me. I'm just saying, I don't have a
I
preference.
think 2 months is too long. These people.
No, I just said that. We're not in a rush. We want to get it right.
And that's not the pushback. That's just to state where my position is. I don't really have an opinion.
And I think that's one of the things that I did say in that memo, and I'll be the first to admit that sometimes I'm too wordy. I put too much in a note or a memorandum, and, when we decide we want to, decipher and dig into what was meant by this or what was meant, Brenda Coleman was merely sending out the information as she understood it.
From that council.
From
That's-
that attorney, And I will be honest, I do trust that attorney, and it's not because she works for AASB or she works for the firm that we actually do use for this district. She is a member of that organization. And, she has made it perfectly clear that she doesn't have a dog in this fight. It's not about yes or no. It's about the process.
But you've
And
got.
we just want to make sure we do it correctly. That's all.
All I'm saying is you have members that I talked to. I don't know how many did, but I know a good many called more than just legal counsel. This same attorney that you talked to worked for the same people and actually was our attorney. And we actually, say, hey, let's do our homework. Homework has been done to find out that the board are the people that actually hires that.
And we've set
Okay,
precedents.
so what we're
We've set
dealing with-
precedents before. We've set precedents.
What
that-
I'm surprised
What we're
about-
dealing with right now, ladies, is whether or not we want to pull out a paper ballot and vote for the candidates that we have, or do we want to follow a process that we know has been proven to be approved by statute, and allow the superintendent to make a recommendation, and we vote it up and down. We are still doing the voting. We are still making the decision. So I'm not sure.
If I may, the statute again is not accurate. In her email that she sent to us, it said there is no law, because I asked, is there a law?
Right.
We were sent the old tenure law and student first, because there is not a law in place. What else are we gonna look at? If she couldn't provide anything else, there's, as far as a law, there is no law. And if you go back and
Okay,
read.
but we're going
But
by
when-
that as a guideline.
But
I don't-
is it an accurate guideline is what I'm asking. If there is no law, then is there a procedure? Are there guidelines if there's no law?
So at this point, do we want to discuss the candidates at all, or do we want to just move the agenda, and when it comes to that item on the agenda, someone would make a motion?
Because we have set precedents before, that's what law does. It follows previous precedents that have been set by law, and we've had a board attorney. There's where, if this was a brand-new situation and we were talking about this, it would not be, this would be a brand-new hire or whatever. But since we have had board attorneys hired by the board in the past, it stopped when MPS went into intervention, and we have not had one in 5 years. I've done my homework.
Oh, I'm glad you did your homework, because one of the things I wanted to know was, do we have the minutes that say whether or not the superintendent made the recommendation or not? No, I'm just asking, do we have that tonight?
No, because we were busy researching whatever else you all were saying. So no, we didn't pull any minutes, but, I don't know, we waited so long, and moving on seems to me wrong. I just wonder why AASB, if they're so concerned about us, why aren't they asking, why don't we have an attorney? Why isn't that a concern for them? That should be a concern for anybody who governs. If they're going to be our governing partner, then they ought to wonder about these 7 ladies sitting up here making decisions for a district this size with no legal guidance.
And in fact, I have to say this.
Because I want to raise.
Our past attorney was shocked that we
Yeah.
don't have an attorney sitting out there
Should
at
be.
each and every one of our meetings. So, for the sake of that, I do think we should go forward and make a note that by the bylaws, we will be at least voting on them on the bylaws as to what we're over. And if we can move forward that way, then let's pull up candidate 1, candidate 2 tonight, and let's move forward. That's the best way and the fastest way, but if y'all want to take your time, we've been taking our time, that's on y'all.
Well, I'd like to echo what you said, Lisa. I would like to move forward under the understanding that the board will make the hire.
And I would also, because we have interviewed, we have done the research on references, and we're leaving people hanging that are very qualified, and they're qualified, and they won't want to come here if they see that the way we handle business.
And very true points.
And may I add one more thing, that the board, we will look at this contract or lack of, or before a final offer is made.
Absolutely. Before anything is signed. Okay. I think we're back to discussing the candidates. Candidate 1, candidate 2.
Okay, for candidate 1, very impressive. I was, the references were very complimentary of the capability of candidate 1. I thought he had all of the skill set to handle being the board attorney. For candidate 2, he or whatever, them, excuse me, they, them. Did I get that pronoun right? They, them. The one thing that really, he has a deep pool of resources that she can,
That candidate
that
2
go
can reach,
to.
yes.
Yeah, okay, I'm just, all right, y'all. But but candidate 2 knows the educational code and also wants to be a part of helping our students.
Thank you.
I vetted candidate 1's reference, and the overall assessment said that candidate 1 appears to possess key qualities that's sought in a board attorney, including integrity, dedication, collaboration, and effective communication. While direct experience in educational policy was not confirmed, the track record suggests a commitment to advocating for educational interests at large. And the reference provided valuable insights into candidate 1's professional demeanor and their capabilities. And they indicated that they thought he would be suitable, that the candidate would be suitable for the role.
I'm so glad you did that.
Thank you. Other discussions? Any other feedback?
All I can say is I had very good feedback on both. And the fact that one of them, or candidate 2, currently works for the district attorney, I think that was very positive. I also think the fact that I'm just saying what was said was very positive on both. I like the personal side of candidate 2 because candidate 2 was from Montgomery, had children here at our schools in Montgomery, and was very passionate about working. It was like if I had to rate one, I'd rank 1 a 10 and 1 a 9.5. So I think either one, we've got good candidates that came.
Any other points to be discussed? Okay. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the January 2024 financial statement. Mr. Arthur Watts. Thank you. Mr. Watts.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Dr. Brown, you should have before you the financial statement for January of 2024. Of course, January represents 1/3 of fiscal year 2024. Information contained in this financial statement includes the explanation of financial data, which is basically a discussion from myself regarding the district's financial position, a snapshot analysis, which is a brief synopsis of our financial standings, a breakdown of our general fund balance, of course, a monthly budget percentage, which is at 33% for this month, monthly and annual comparison statement of revenues and expenditures, which is basically a comparative report of our month-to-date and year-to-date revenues and expenditures, and it compares that to the prior year's month-to-date and year-to-date revenues and expenditures, actual cash receipts and cash paid information, pie chart of those cash receipts and cash paid as of January of 2024, and the F combined financial statements, which includes our district's balance sheet and our district's statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, which is basically our income statement. Of course, we ended January 31st, 2024 with a fund balance of about $116 million as of January of 2024. Let's keep in mind that the majority of our ad valorem taxes have come in, and I just speak from this snapshot analysis here. We see that our ending fund balance of about $116.2 million as of January of 2024, compared to last year at the same time at about $91.1 million. Again, we want to keep in mind that we started collecting the ad valorem tax from the vote of 2020 this current year, so that makes up a lot of that particular fund balance. As I stated earlier, we are at about 1/3 of the fiscal year, which represents about 33%. We see our revenues as a percentage of budget at about 44.63%, and we'll be doing an amended budget really soon. We see our expenditures as a percent of budget at about 37.44%. Of course, the reason that is above the 33%, Madam President, is because we decided to go ahead, since we have the funds now, go ahead and fund those capital reserve accounts that we budgeted in 2024. For example, we budgeted an additional $5 million to go into our capital fund account for fiscal year 2024. As you know, we're planning for capital expenditures in the coming years, whether it's HVAC projects, whether it's roofing projects, whether it's any other type of project that we may have for our schools. So we want to make sure that we have some funds to be able to repair our buildings when those needs arise without having to hit our general fund. We also funded our technology reserve account by an additional $600,000. In 2023, we funded it by $2 million. So we have about $2.6 million in our technology reserve account. We decided also for fiscal year 2024 to start setting aside some funds for our security reserve account. As you know, there'll always be a need for us to update cameras and update security infrastructures. So we, of course, funded that by $750,000. And of course, the need for vehicles when the time arises, we funded that at $750,000. So in all, we went ahead and funded our reserve accounts for a total of about $14.1 million as of fiscal year 2024. Now for 2023, we funded $7 million. 2024, $7.1 million for a total now in our reserve accounts of $14.1 million that we have now set aside when these expenditures arise, then we'll have the funds set aside to do so. We'd like to continue to do this up to a certain point as we have the funds to do so. I personally would like to see that capital reserve account get up to about $20 million. So we'll maybe come back and revisit that at the end of the year to see if we can put a little bit more aside. I always think about what Joseph said in the Bible. I'm not trying to get spiritual, but he said in times of plenty, you set something aside. And so that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that we have the funds available when these expenditures arise. And so that's what we're trying to do. Madam President, I also want to say thank you to a lot of people. Again, that ad valorem tax that was passed at 3.5 mil, I can't tell you how important that was. That's an $11 million a year for Montgomery Public Schools. And when you think about the next 30 years, that's $330 million for our children. And so I want to thank a lot of people. I hope I don't miss anything. I want to thank the mayor who supported us. I want to thank all of the board members who worked so hard in supporting us, the superintendent who was everywhere, supporting us, talking up the tax, the county commission. They were there supporting us, the city council. I want to say thank you to them. They were there supporting us, the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much. They were there supporting us, the Ministerial Alliance. They supported us. All the employees of the district supported us. The students, the parents supported us. AEA, thank you all for supporting us. And all of the other citizenry of Montgomery, the PTA, we want to thank them for supporting us, and all of the business and just everyone, the entire citizenry and stakeholders of this county supported this effort. And I can tell you how huge that is for Montgomery and for the children of this school district. So thank you so much, Madam President.
Thank you very much. Are there questions of Mr. Watts?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
I think I heard you say something about 750,000 in the reserve for like either security or cameras. Did I hear that right?
Yes, ma'am, $750,000 for security.
Yeah, I don't know, monies as far as what it costs for that kind of technology, but based on, I think we all know that we are at risk, of people breaking into schools, not just breaking into schools, but, school shooters. I hate to bring that up, but that.
Yes.
And, with more cameras, front, back, wherever we can put them, there's that. I also raised this, and I brought this up to our superintendent. I'm not going to mention the school, but we do have a principal that has closed down an entire building, a math building, because of security. He was saying that, kids were skipping and going, skipping school, smoking marijuana over there, that he just did not have enough security. Well, if we had those cameras, that kind of stuff would stop. And I wouldn't have the teachers that are calling me saying they're in overcrowded rooms, they're moving a whole building of teachers over to another building. I know that our superintendent said he was going to look into that, but, I relish principals that take initiatives to try new things, so I'm not putting that principal down at all. I just think with the cameras, this can help our principals, help our teachers, ensure the safety to our students. So 750 to me sounds low when it comes to that kind of stuff that we need when you have 51 schools, something like that.
You're absolutely right, Dr. Keith. In fact, what we've done we're working on an entire camera refresh. And Mr. Anderson will make it talk a little bit more about that. But we're working on an entire refresh of cameras. Fortunately, we were able to write some of that into our ESSER grant, and it was approved by the state. And so,
but what about additional? I have to say, we can get new ones, but I think we need more based on what's happening. I mean, this is actually happening in the last 2 weeks, where principals are moving the whole building of teachers and students into a building, what do you think's happening? It's got to be crowded. They're losing their labs in science. This is serious, and I think if we could help them out ASAP with cameras, you could put these teachers back where they were and not have these teachers up and all. My advice was, hey, let's give it 2 or 3 weeks. Let's just see if it works. Then call me. But I'm telling, I did say I would mention it, and I just hope that we would either think about putting more in that reserve And more cameras, not just updating the ones we have.
Certainly, and of course, Mr. Anderson may be able to talk about the locations of the cameras and the number of the various schools based on square footage and so forth. But I do take that as a point that we may look at putting more in that particular reserve. Thank you.
Mr. Watts, how much do we have left in ESSER funds, and when do we have to exhaust that or have it encumbered?
All the funds have to be exhausted by September 30th of 2024. I think we have a little bit more than 20-something million currently, but we do have those monies allocated to be expended by that time.
So they've been
Now,
encumbered?
but let me just say this, that the funds have to be encumbered or obligated
Right.
by September 30th of 2024. So yes, all the funds will be obligated by that time.
Yes.
Thank you.
And my question is just kind of more of a process question. You mentioned decreased enrollment. Recently, the Choose Act has now happened, and then you have the Choice Act. I was wondering, how are we planning moving forward? Because those things are gonna impact us financially if, there's a plan in place that soon will be brought before the board, so we can know how we need to better support you all in our decision-making to make sure that that funding is adjusted to the point where there's not such a big impact on the students and the teachers.
Well, we'll certainly have to look at making adjustments as this legislation is put in place. What I would encourage all board members, all parents, and everyone else to do is to let's make sure that we talk to our legislators and make calls and talk about how some of the decisions that are being made are affecting public dollars for public children and for poor Black, brown, and white children. And I think that is basically a travesty that some of the decisions that are being made as it relates to tax cuts from the Education Trust Fund, for corporate tax cuts, and some of these other acts that are being passed that affects the funding for education out of the Education Trust Fund that affects our kids. So I do think we need to, do whatever we could from a legislative standpoint. And of course, if we don't, then as you just stated, we will have to make adjustments to accommodate those particular losses in funding.
And I wanted to add, I spoke to someone, like, we've been on these conferences, and I think it was, I spoke to someone in Texas, and they have something similar to the Choose Act, and the problem that they're facing is, as that money goes out, parents go into different entities. It's not what they like, but that entity has, that organization has they have the money, but the quality is not there. Then the children come back, and you can have an overcrowding depending on where they're coming from, because eventually people kind of see the light. And then they are trying to figure out how to budget as they get these returning students in. So you're right, talking to the legislatures and actually, knowing the things that will impact the students who are with us, and even those who may choose to leave if they come back, how that would also impact them as well.
Right, absolutely, because the funding would have already been gone to the other district, and then now we have the children back. We have to incur those particular expenditures, and the money's already with another organization. So I do think that is something that we need to be mindful of as well. But again, I just think it really, really hurts our kids, especially poor kids, especially in the Black Belt areas where they only have 10 meals. Many of those counties only have 10 meals, and they really don't have many options. So it really is a concern, and I just think that public education dollars need to be expended on public education students. That's just my personal thought.
Are there other questions of Mr. Watts? Thank you again, Mr. Watts. At this time, we move to our consent agenda. Dr. Brown?
President, I submit for approval the personnel report, certified personnel for approval.
Minutes.
I'm sorry, the minutes. The
You,
consent agenda, the minutes for the February 13th special call meeting, work session, and regular board meeting minutes for approval.
Thank you. You have heard the recommendation of the superintendent. Is there a motion?
I move to accept the recommendation of the superintendent.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we accept the recommendation of the superintendent. Is there discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll take the vote. All those in favor, raise your hands. It is unanimous. At this time, we move to items to consider for approval. Personnel report, certified personnel.
Now I'll try that. Madam President, I recommend for approval the personnel report, certified personnel.
Thank you. You have heard the recommendation of the superintendent. Is there a motion?
I move to accept the recommendation of personnel report, certified personnel presented by the superintendent.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the personnel report certified. Is there discussion?
One question. I noticed that the scales are very, very different. Is there a scale that we're going by that we use all the time for, well, both certified and classified, but for certified? I know the years are maybe different, but I noticed on here, at some point, there's a new hire, which with a bachelor's making one thing and another one making, is there a reason?
It depends on level of experience, where they're placed on the salary schedule.
Is there a schedule somewhere?
Yes,
Where?
that's with the HR department. We've had a set of
She
salaries.
did send me, HR did send me something. It's difficult to read, but I got
That's been established for a long time.
that scale. Because I thought it was.
It gets
a new-
adjusted based upon raises. As you know, the 4% raise went in
Right,
place last year.
right.
All those things were included into the salary schedule.
But it's the same schedule.
Yes.
Just, okay.
Okay, I just want to make aware that we need teachers. We've got 24 retiring and 4 resignations. I mean, I know it's that time of the year, but it just
Right.
breaks my heart, you know.
I mean, I applaud folks being able to retire, and I'm a little bit jealous of them, so I understand the fact that they're doing that. That's exactly the work we'll be doing in the HR department to replace those positions.
And there are some on here that are retirement, they're not retirement age. They're leaving, but they're not retirement age like me. They can retire. I know people are diversifying their skills and moving on. I wish there was something we could put in place to know, are they interested in anything before they leave?
They can't designate a retirement unless they actually go through the system to officially do it. So
Right.
those are official retirements.
No, I know they're official. I'm
Oh,
just
okay.
saying, we think that retirement means they've met that age. Some of these people are not that age. I don't know why it's called retirement.
They've done their 25 years.
Yeah, they're vested in the system, so they're eligible
vested,
based
right.
on age
Yeah, but
and experience.
yeah,
Is there other discussion?
just wish they'd stay to the 25.
We'll take the vote. All those in favor, raise your hands. It passes. Put your hand up. Okay, at this time, we move to personnel report classified.
Madam President, I recommend for approval the personnel report, classified personnel.
You have heard the recommendation of the superintendent. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for certified personnel classified.
Second.
Classified.
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 Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for classified personnel report. Is there discussion?
And we have a lot of people resigning. A lot of people resigning.
I pretty much think that's across the board.
Well,
Is there further discussion?
On my computer's dead, but I did notice on the classified report that there were people that went from maybe a 2 to a 3 classified. If you go up, if you where more duties are required and you, say you go from Secretary 3 to a Secretary 4, but the pay was the same. Is there?
Well, there's a salary schedule associated with those as well. Those are in stone or fairly articulated, so there's no deviation from those lists. I'm not sure, if you have a specific one, I don't know that I can speak to it at the moment because I didn't have that question before now, but any of the numbers that are associated with the minutes are officially from the scales.
And then let me ask you this for classified. For classified, is there a plan? Every time certified gets a degree of some type, they are given a raise. Certified or classified or not, you have classified people who have degrees. So is there a plan to relook at those scales that are set in stone and maybe chisel away some of the stone and get to a fair? Because with these gatekeepers, you're gonna lose them at a rapid rate because Buc-ee's their salary schedule is better than ours. But I'm saying if we are intentional, we might need to put some other things in place, such as supplements. Supplements should not just go to certified people. A cheerleading coach can be a secretary. Maybe they cheered in high school. I'm just saying, can you open, is there a plan to open the gate?
Two
Just a
things.
little while.
Once, yes, we'd like to bring a plan to expand and do some of those things we talked about. Additional compensation for various positions we'd be bringing forth. Mr. Watts is actually working on that now. Two, classified folks can get supplements and be a cheerleading coach or something of that nature. They are eligible to do that.
But those positions are given out by the principal, correct?
In most cases, yes.
Okay. Mr. Watts knows, we've talked. He knows how complicated that is because for Montgomery Public Schools, what she does at her school as a secretary too, I don't do at my school. I schedule, I register, I do this, I do this, I do this. So my pay scale should be different from her pay scale because she answers the phone and takes care of parents.
Well, I think that comes from historical expectations of those roles not necessarily being consistent. And given that we don't have those to start with, we have to build that as we go. We find a lot of discrepancies among the numbers of positions, particularly in the secretarial pool, which has caused the delay in how we want to go about giving compensation to adjust their current situation. So there's quite a bit to assess.
Right, and the survey they took when you first got here, that's 2 years old.
Yes, but the
So
survey
now-
was not based on data. We want to make decisions based on information, not necessarily on opinion.
So how will we do that? When will we do that?
Mr. Watts is actually doing that right now to adjust the positions based on where we are within the district in comparison to other districts.
Okay,
If you think back to November, we intended to bring some things
Right,
forward.
right.
The secretarial pool, our administrative assistants was somewhat more complicated, which meant he had to gather more intel in order to make those decisions.
If I may just add, that's a team of us that are working on that, and we're looking at basically not just the salary schedules, but the
Just for the record, so everybody understood what just happened, Mr. Watts just got scolded by Ms. Jones to get to the mic.
Yes, we're not only looking at just the salary schedules, but we're also looking at the job, not just job posting, but what's it called? The job description. Yes, the job description for each of those positions, so that we really would have exact data. And so whatever data and whatever is used at one school, that's the same data that's used at the other school, and whatever the job description is at JAG would be the same job description at Carver and the same job description at whatever other high school. Same thing for middle schools, the same thing for elementary schools. And just like you said, you may have a person right now who may be on a 4, who may be doing the work of a 2, or a person who may be on a 2, who may be doing the work of a 3 or 4. So we just have our work cut out for us on this. And I do agree with you also, Ms. Portis, about looking at the possibility of degrees on classified in that particular work area. For example, if a person is in the area of, let's just say HVAC, but then if that person has a HVAC card that's a journeyman or HVAC master HVAC person, then that person would be compensated accordingly. Same thing for several of the other areas. If the person has certain skills or certain degrees in those particular areas, then we do want to look at the potential of recognizing some of those skills. I know right now we are, requesting that all of our bookkeepers receive certification from ASBO. But of course, we're not providing any supplement or anything after they receive that particular certificate, and they have to retain it. So that's something we want to look at as well. So I do agree that in many of these particular areas, I think we do need to compensate employees for that.
And is anyone, are the actual secretaries on this committee? And let me tell you why I have pause in making it uniform. Because it depends on the strength of your principal. It depends who you put in that building. If I'm a secretary and you put a weak principal in there, how are your children gonna get scheduled? I know how to schedule, they don't. So you're compensating, those are the kind of things you're gonna have to really get to. And putting those people in your committee, I'm telling you, will help you. Because they can tell you the nuances of what actually goes on in the building.
Thank you, and that's why there's a team of us that are talking and discussing this, and we are seeking outside information, but I do take your point that it maybe involve a couple of those individuals.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Another question, yes.
Yes, I'm looking at special education aides. IEP season is here. Our teachers need to be writing IEPs, need to be having meetings, and those aides need to be in place, and I'm afraid we don't have enough. Could you clarify that for me?
I would concur, we don't have enough, because we have to recruit those folks to go in those roles.
But this is IEP season, and
Yes, but those folks don't grow on trees. We have to actually get them in place. I respect your question. I understand where you're
Right.
coming from. But it's not like we can just grab folks and put them in positions. They have to
Right.
be available, qualified, and willing to take those roles.
thank you,
It isn't like we're certainly doing that.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll take,
Real quick question.
go right ahead.
Dr. Brown, probably you can answer this for me, but the Mercer, or Mr. Weiss, the Mercer study that was done, is that still relevant at this time as you all are looking at the salary?
Yes,
range?
that is. As you recall, we talked about not only the administrative positions, we also talked about some other clerical and administrative positions as well as a part of that study. So that information is part of that. We did want to bring the most compensated positions last, so that the least compensated positions were able to get some increase in salary, if you will, before that happened.
Are we ready for the vote? All those in favor of adopting the superintendent's recommendation for personnel report classified, please raise your hand. 5-2. Yeah, I saw your hand. Thank you. Item C.
Madam President, I recommend for approval the January 2024 financial statement.
You've heard the recommendation of the superintendent. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for the January 2024 financial statement.
And I second it.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the January 2024 financial statement. Is there discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll take the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands. It is unanimous. And item D.
Madam President, with respect, I was prepared to provide a recommendation to the board based on its feedback tonight. However, given the conversation, I'm going to defer that and not have a recommendation so that the board can have its own discourse.
Okay,
Well, I would
with-
like, are you,
I was going to say, with no recommendation, what is your discussion?
I would like to make a motion that the board recommend candidate 2.
It has been moved and seconded that we accept candidate 2. Is there discussion?
point of privilege, Madam President. Are you
Yes.
recommending that the candidates who the board be allowed to enter into negotiations and discussion with candidates who? Is that what we're doing?
Yes.
You may want to phrase the motion that way.
Okay. This is a very awkward situation that we've been placed in. The superintendent was prepared to make a recommendation based on our discussion. And with no recommendation, we're going to go ahead and once again take a vote.
If I may, just for clarity, if the board would like for me to make a recommendation, I'm happy to do so. I recommend that the board enter negotiations with candidate 2. You are most welcome, Ms. Portis.
Thank you. You have heard the recommendation of the superintendent. Is there a motion?
I recommend that we accept the recommendation of candidate 2.
It has been moved and seconded that we accept the recommendation of the superintendent and enter into negotiations with candidate 2. Is there discussion?
For clarity, because the process, is this no problem with the recommendation? Just want to know, this is you're making this recommendation on behalf of the board, is what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am, that's what I'm doing.
Okay, and this will be, so ladies, we all understand this will be the board hire. Okay.
Is there other discussion? Hearing no further discussion, we'll take the vote. All those in favor, raise your hands. 5-2, it passes. I think I lost my place. Okay, thank you. Yes, there being no further action items on this agenda, the regular board meeting is adjourned, but we ask that you don't leave the space because we will begin our work session momentarily. Okay, we are moving. Okay.
We will begin.
Board members would like a brief recess. You were perfect. No, I was about to take it as you guys wanted it. I mean, one thing I want us to do is be as cohesive as possible and work as a team. You know, we absolutely we can disagree, but we were dealing with semantics. We were getting what we wanted. Oh. Oh, your foot is there. That is too cute. You dress. Wait a minute, he left. They'll leave the room. I mean, the building. Well, no, she tried, but they got me. I told this one, did you get your email from me? I told her I was already fighting it out. And if I decided to leave, I was going to pass the gavel. I didn't mean for us to take that kind of break. She gone. darn, I guess I should have said 3 minutes. Two minutes. One minute. What's that? We need all board members to please return to their seats at the table. We're about to begin. Good evening. The March 12 work session of the Montgomery County Board of Education is called to order. We still have 7 present. I declare that a quorum is present. Our work session agenda was posted for our review. If there is no objection, we will adopt this agenda by unanimous consent. Is there objection? Hearing no objection, the agenda is adopted. There are several reports to be received as updates and are presented for information only. We will take those in the order that they are printed on the agenda. The first item for tonight's agenda is a Volkert update presented by Mr. Glenn Slater. Welcome, Mr. Slater.
Better. Thank you. Our monthly update. This is a rendering, an animated rendering of the new Capitol Heights, which is going behind the current Percy Julian School. I'm gonna ask the IT guys to see if they can make it fly. There we go. This would be coming behind the school. Is it the existing Percy Julian School? Back to the side here where we'll have second floor let out. Got an open area here to go back down through to the media center. And we've also got a common area that will kind of have a mall-like atmosphere for the children that will come down and lean into the cafeteria area. Open courtyard, in front and back. This is overlooking where the cafeteria is and the raised platform stage that will go into the gymnasium area. Again, back to the cafeteria with the kitchen across the hallway there. Nice outdoor space. This is the classroom wings here. The back of the cafeteria. Existing field and football field and track would be to the screen left at this point. Where the children could have the weight room that would open up to the outside there. Would be the a bus drop area toward the front of the school. The canopies don't show very plain right now, but there'll be canopies for the children to stand under during drop off. That was the fly through or fly by. The next updates we've got for the Carver ninth grade academy, South Lawn Middle Gym, Park Crossing Field House, and the driveway improvements at Blunt Car. This is the ninth grade academy, showing the block walls are up and the metal studs walls are up. Mechanical systems are going in. The building, it looks wet. On the inside, it's actually, they've got the poly insulation down and the ice and water shield. They're waiting on the metal panels to come in to finish the roof off. Most of the brickwork is complete on the outside. This would be standing at Fairview, looking back toward the the front of the building there. Again, an interior shot. We'll soon, after the full roof goes on, start going up with drywall and getting the windows in place. The storm shelter area there on the left, you see it's got a concrete top on it there. This is the field house. The foundation work is done for the field house. It's coming along well. The South Lawn Middle School, the foundations are going well. They're about finished, almost finished with the foundation work, getting ready to go up with some walls and get it to where they can put the hollow core slab on. Park Crossing, we're right at 40% complete with it. As you can see, they've got the walls up for the crawl space there, and they'll finish pouring those and put a mud slab in where the river rock is there, and be able to float the hollow core slabs in for it as well soon. View from the northwest and the south. The Blunt driveway, showing 65% complete. That's going by his pay request. He's closer to, I'd say closer to 80% complete. They're laying asphalt today. I'd look for them to lay asphalt the rest of the week. The goal is to have them complete by the end of March with the new striping and the rest of it there. See the curbs and the base is in. They're getting ready to put asphalt in. This is our minority participation. There's a little change in the month. There weren't any new purchase orders issued this month. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
Yes, Mr. Slater, I noticed that you said that there was little change in the minority participation. It really doesn't look like there's been any change for the last several meetings. So my question to you, with new contracts coming on, can we have, like, the next meeting, could we have a breakdown in actual number, not percentage?
Yes,
Of
ma'am.
minority participation?
Yes, ma'am. We'll bring that down to the last dollar.
Thank you. Are there, yes.
I just
Dr.
want
Keith?
one, I don't know if you could answer this or not, but based on, go back to, I didn't stop you, but on the Capitol Heights little run through that we just did, you were bringing up the, where the buses were coming in. You know, currently the buses are on Main and Street. And I taught over there for 29 years, which was always a problem. My understanding is when y'all take down Lee and put up the new Capitol Heights building is deeper. It's going to be in the back.
Correct.
So am I correct to say that the buses would actually have to turn off of Ann and be on another frontage, or like, you know, a different parking lot than Ann Street itself?
I have to relook at the traffic flow again. I'm not sure if we're making a U-turn on the front of the school or if we're coming around on the side that Atlanta Highway is on, and then coming back and S-turning back that way.
I'm not trying to be personal with you, but there's two flashing red lights there, and yellow lights, and they're only yellow in the morning and in the afternoon. And honestly, not lying on my children's life, I had wrecks at both lights, and it was pulling out because you had the buses here, and you're trying to look out here and, you know, go past the buses. And other people that don't come there during that time see that light as no light. It's like they don't see it; they just see it as a flashing light, not a stoplight. And so what ended up happening, it wasn't ever my fault, but I came close to being smushed, you know, because they hit. I just feel like that's a dangerous road. And I've watched children go over to McDonald's and all that kind of stuff, and that's why I was like, if it really is being built back deeper, and our buses are actually turning off, it would be a good thing. You know?
We've got Daryl Skipper, we're working closely with him, which is a traffic consultant. And he's also working with the city for the realignment of Ann there, because they've been working on it. I think Mr. Anderson said they've been working on it for 15 years now, but they're finally starting to do some work on it.
I just want, at that point in time, children are starting to drive and they're inexperienced, but they have their driver's license, and I want them to be safe. So if there's some way that can be, so we can get our children that are inexperienced drivers safe out of the parking lot, you know, those with cars. I want that. I mean, I want to make sure that happens.
You know, if I'm not mistaken, at a previous board meeting, you know, we were told that Ann Street is going to be widened, and it will be within about 20 feet of where the old
Right, that's the frontage.
school is now. Therefore, that won't be the area in which they'll be coming out. It will probably be one of the little side streets that's by that little cushion place.
Yeah, that'd be good.
It's a little road there that's off that will probably be the place where
So where was-
students would travel, and I'm sure that they will do a good job. The professionals will do a good job in figuring out
So where
how
would
that's
student
going to
parking-
be done.
Where would student parking be?
This is
Well,
going to be
this is a middle
junior high
school.
school.
They don't
This is a
drive.
middle
Oh,
school.
I'm sorry.
So
I keep getting
hopefully
that
they'll have
confused.
bicycles.
Please give me, I'm still going back to Percy Julian and it being Capitol Heights. I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Are there additional questions? Yes?
I have one. Is all of that real glass on those windows, or is it? Plexiglass
At
or-
Capitol Heights,
Capitol Heights.
there's some glass on the front of the building. There's quite a bit of glass on the front of the building, but there's also will be some shading and some louvers on it to where we'll be able to let some natural light in and let it have an open area there, but it's also going to be secured.
If there are no further questions, we thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, an update on our superintendent's evaluation, Dr. Vernette Nettles.
Good afternoon, Superintendent, Board members, Board Chair. As an update, most of these are just reminders. Based on the timeline that was provided in November of 2023, the superintendent will at this point end that point of providing information and begin a data collection process. And that data collection would be associated with the professional learning plan. In his professional learning plan, there was an agreement that he would be working on completion and execution of the MPS RISE plan, recreating the district's leadership structure, rebuilding the Department of Academics and Accountability, and creating impactful parent engagement activities. So when he presents documentation of his professional learning plan, those are the activities that will be referenced. It will not be the complete scope of what he does. The professional learning plan and those evidence markers that are presented are only reflective of the professional learning plan. The professional learning plan is reflected in Standard 1, Item F, which states accomplished objectives as identified in the agreed upon professional learning plan. So when you look at that first collection of evidence, it's related to the professional learning plan, and it's just those things in the plan. The thing that I want to remind us of, and let me say this first, I'm having the same discussion with my family. We say we want a plan, and then everybody chimes in, and then we forget the plan because all of the other information that swirls around. It's so important when we're looking at the superintendent's evaluation that we look at the items there, that we're reflective of the collaborative relationship we have with the superintendent, because sometimes our personal feelings get in the way. That's just who we are. We're human. We get personal sometimes. But when you're looking at the evaluation, the professional learning plan and the evaluation in its entire scope, we want to focus on the work that's been done. And that's the focus of the evaluation. And I say that because it's happening right now at my house, and I have to call my little sister and beg her pardon. Okay, so having said that, from March to April, Dr. Brown will collect that relevant evidence based on the professional learning plan, and I'm going to ask him that he provide that evidence in a Google Drive link and provide that link to you all. But I also want to say this. Across the course of the year, the superintendent has provided you with weekly updates. He's provided you with additional conversation. So everything that's happened in the scope of the year, there is not a real need for him to repeat some of that. Some of that he may reference in the information that you all get, as opposed to recreating it and giving you a whole year's worth of information that you already have. So I'm going to ask that he provide that information in a Google link and with particular reference to information that you all may not have. In April, I'm going to request to come back in April to provide you with the evaluation instrument and walk you through it again so that you see the scoring and the rating again at that point. And then in May, the evaluation results will be presented at the board meeting. And I do need to discuss with Dr. Coleman and Dr. Brown and Ms. Murray what needs to happen at that point, because you've restructured the board meeting. And so if there needs to be a vote, we need to talk about what that will look like. My suggestion is if there is a vote, that happens in June, as opposed to trying to reshuffle everything around. At this point in the timeline, I think it would be a hindrance more than a help to shuffle too many things around. So I will get with the three of you to make sure that we have an understanding of the process on the back end, so we do not create an undue hindrance to the evaluatee. And I think that's fair. Do you have any questions or concerns about where we are in the process at this point?
Thank you. Are there questions of Dr. Nettles?
I was trying to list out what you said, what we were evaluating on MPS RISE, Department of Academics and Accountability, and what was?
What's in his professional learning plan is completion and execution of the MPS RISE plan, recreating the district's leadership structure, rebuilding the Department of Academic Accountability, and creating impactful parent engagement activities. That's what's in the professional learning plan.
Thank
you.
I can send that back out this week also if you like.
Other questions? Thank you, Dr. Nettles.
Thank you.
We spoke a couple of months ago about the CSFO employment contract renewal, and we have had initial conversations with Mr. Watts about his renewal, and that information is going to be shared with each board member over the coming weeks. It is our hope to bring a contract for your approval at the April meeting. Are there questions?
Because this is my first time on the board, could we also get a copy of his previous contract to compare?
I will send it again. It's okay. I will send it again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The next item, facilities update, Mr. Chad Anderson.
Good evening, Dr. Brown, members of the board. If you'll look at your spreadsheet with me, we'll go through those quickly. We've already received information on the Volkert capital plan and their projects. Looking at the Wares Ferry re-roof, we're approximately 45% complete with this roof. The architect anticipates we'll finish with this project before the end of this month. We're going to give them to the first part of April, just barring any kind of delays that may come up with it, but I anticipate that we should be finished with this project by the end of this month. The Brubaker Intermediate HVAC renovation, you can see it is tracking well. we're somewhere between 65 to 70% complete. It's moving so quickly that the weekly updates don't keep up with where the actual progress is. So that's an estimate there, and I feel that it's more closer to 70%, but moving well. The Brubaker primary HVAC is approximately 32%. They're moving into the next phase of their project of that as well, with going around the area near the cafeteria, the wing in that area. The Carver High School roof repair, that's to begin this week. We gave them the notice to proceed a few weeks ago. They'll start on that. What that will do is repair the existing roof and the issues that we have currently going on there. Some of those parapet walls that are the vertical walls that you see, they've had some movement over the years, and this will help solidify that part of it. And then also they'll be painting the EFS boards that you see around the side. Some of the staining that's on that, you'll see that being cleared up and cleaned up with this part of the roofing project. And it's also the roofer that is going to be involved with other projects as well. The Brubaker primary intermediate roof replacement, the pre-construction meeting for that will be next week. We've got that going and underway. It's going to coincide with the HVAC because there are some rooftop units that have to be placed up there for the project. So roof will be coordinated with HVAC on that. Morningview and Davis, no new update in that. We're still working with the professional services on that to get that underway and going. We've done as much as we can to this point, but that'll start progressing quickly here. The other pieces that we have, the E.D. Nixon re-roof, Halcyon Garrett re-roof, and the Johnson Annex re-roof, those were bid out. You received the bid tabulation on those and an initial contract, the first page of that for your review as well. A couple of items I wanted to go over as well with Capitol Heights. I know we had some discussion about that at the last meeting. Wanted to get back with you on some updates with that. The back path around the back of the building that is utilized by the CMP trucks and also the dumpster services that ruts out, we're going to be smoothing that out with our maintenance department here in the next few weeks. The city was notified of the areas that were of concern in the community center for them to look into that and replacing ceiling tiles and such in that area. The front parking lot has been scheduled with the city for paving in the near future here, and we'll be restriping that. And then maintenance is, we'll be scheduling the remaining bathrooms to receive updates like the 4 that we've previously done here this year with drop ceiling, lighting, exhaust fans, some painting in the area, and then the fixtures, all the fixtures, the sinks and toilets and urinals have been replaced in that as well. The cameras, I had some questions from Mr. Watts on cameras. Wanted to give you a little bit of briefing on that. We have approximately 6,000 cameras in the district. That is a large amount of cameras when you speak to the vendors that we deal with throughout the state. We have an abundance of them, and we do have some weak spots, we know that, and that's one of the things that we're trying to address currently with what Mr. Watts was speaking on with the ESSER. Cameras typically range between $500 to $1,500 a piece, depending on the capabilities of the camera. Some of them are a 360 camera, and they actually have 4 cameras built into the housing. Those are going to be more expensive. Over the past 4 years, we've replaced approximately 2,000 cameras, going from analog to IP-based cameras. And with the ESSER, we're going to be looking to add an additional 1,000 cameras with either replacement or additional cameras throughout that. The platform that we were able to change to with this migration is called Avigilon. It does offer some AI capabilities. I know Dr. Brown sent me something earlier this week about some stuff with weapons detection. There are some of those things. A lot of that software is kind of in the early stages to be doing the weapons detection and then alerting of those. We're looking at that. Avigilon and the system that we have here at the central offices, Verkada, both have those capabilities to add those tag-ons for the AI-type technology to give you that alerting. One of the other things I wanted to remind you of, something that's been in your weekly updates, and we've discussed it and approved it here at the board meetings, is the Centegix Alert Badge System. That's going to be throughout the district, and we're currently working on that. Operations and IT getting that underway. We've received several of the products with it. IT is working on doing some extra pulls for data drops that are required with that system, and it'll roll out this summer. That capability that we'll have with that, each individual will carry something approximately the size of our badges that has a button on it that can alert and place the school in a lockdown from anywhere on the campus with that. And it'll do a different alert if we just need like the nurse to come to an area or security to come to an area and we're not placing the whole school on a lockdown. So that is a great capability that we'll have within each of those, within each of our schools with that. So just wanted to give you those updates with that.
Thank you. Are there questions regarding the facilities update? Hearing no questions, we'll move to, did you want to talk about the bids next, re-roofing projects?
Yes, ma'am. I briefly went over that. It's, with it not being something for vote, it's just an information that I gave you, the bid tabulations and the front page of the first page of the contract, just to show you who the awarded bidder will be for those 4 projects.
And one of the things I was wanting to know,
Yes, ma'am.
I thought I had looked clearly, and I'm looking again. They're dated here in March. Is there a drop dead date that these need to be approved?
We'd like to get them on the board as quickly as possible. The funding for that Mr. Watt approved for us will again run out September 30th. We'd like to get those going as quickly as we can and add some additional, so tying up vendors. If we drag them out, it'll tie up the vendors, and we'll lose out possibly on completing some of the roofs that we need to complete.
That's the reason for the question.
Yes, ma'am.
So we'll look at how to get that to work. Are there questions of Mr. Anderson other than what I just asked? Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. The next item on the agenda will be presented by Ms. Jamie Wilson. It's regarding our summer bridge program from GPS Ed. Ms. Wilson?
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Brown, members of the board. I bring to your information the GPS Educational Service contract for our summer bridge programs. As you may remember, GPS, we brought forth a contract for GPS services to support students with community outreach and our attendance. Mr. Hall and Dr. Harrison presented to us on that evening. Up for tonight, or I guess up for next board meeting, is our contract to extend services with Carver High School, Percy Julian, JAG, and Park Crossing. They have had, we went up for approval for their summer bridge programs earlier, and now we're happy to add all the high schools. So this is for our summer bridge freshmen, our rising freshmen. They'll go to a 4 to 6 week program where they're doing either enrichment or intervention in math and reading. What is special about GPS is that they work with the leadership team in each building to create a program that's specific to their freshmen and to their building. So they provide the staff, some staffing. They also do activities that include our extracurriculars and the arts. And this will be for a 3-year contract. So it'll start at your approval and it'll run through June 30th of 2027.
Thank you. Are there questions of Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Yes.
I have, Ms. Wilson, you're adding 5 schools, 3 high schools of Brewtech, BTW, and Lamp, the magnet schools. 1 middle school, Brubaker Middle, and 1 elementary, Chisholm.
Correct.
Okay. So, and this is for 9th grade going in, or that is there now?
Rising, so from 8th to
Rising.
9th grade. And then With Brubaker and Chisholm, they create programs specific for their building, and they were added on as they met with GPS and provided that service. We're also, I don't know if you remember, but we had a conflict resolution grant where Percy Julian was also feeder pattern with Chisholm, so it's helpful that they are now working with GPS in a summer bridge program as well.
Is that figure of, that 950, is that yearly or is that the full 3 years?
The full 3. So I think it's about $66,000 a summer program, and $50,000 for Chisholm a year.
I know when Mr. Lee was here last month, I asked for some information, exactly what they do. I know Dr. Coleman mentioned the meeting that we went to in Huntsville, but in going to some of these other districts, they have some really good opportunities for bridge. Carver's been doing bridge a long time. For this kind of money, we might want to, and I'm not telling you to, I'm just suggesting it, consider building a bridge team ourselves, because it would save some money. And that way you can bring in retired people that may be willing to make a few dollars. And because I don't know what they do. I've not gotten any statistics what they've done so far. So to keep giving them money gives me pause, because I don't, is it beneficial, or what are we getting out of it? Are they teaching the community when they go into the communities to look for these children that are absent? What skills are they living in the community? Can the community benefit and eventually take care of themselves? I would hope that you would help us by providing a little feedback.
Sure. That is a different contract, so that does specifically work with our community, and I can give you the analytics on what they've done in buildings for the attendance part. This program, actually, we did use Carver High School as our model. So they have been using GPS to support their bridge programs for several years, and it has been successful. I could also ask Mr. Hall, who's been keeping the data from students who went to, he watches them. So if they went to freshman summer bridge program, how are they faring versus those who did not? He does have that information. Because his data was so successful, we wanted our other high schools to be able to jump on that and model what has worked at Carver, but with their own spin and specific to their needs of their building.
Good. And would you include what they use? Like you said, they have their own SPED and their own, maybe what they're using for that program would help us see.
Sure. It's the curriculum that they worked with GPS to develop, but I'll ask that as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you.
The next 3 items will come from Human Resources. They will be heard and discussed one item at a time. The first is the MPS recruitment strategy. Ms. Stacy Murray?
May I ask something? What about the Blaze Works professional service agreement by Dr. Williamson?
I thought it was deleted.
She has a whole.
Okay.
On the mic. Stand at the podium. I will not move. Superintendent Brown and members of the board. I get 3 items on the agenda tonight, so we got some time together. I'll go through them briefly, though, because one of them you've already received as information, the recruitment strategy. So to highlight some areas in that strategy, this is a comprehensive plan, a comprehensive strategy that entails collaboration and steps with key members, key partners in the district and outside of the district as we focus on recruitment and retention for and within MPS. We are currently in the thick of recruitment season. I will admit that MPS, we started a little late given the timing of my arrival, onboarding, and some other staff and exit.
of staff within the HR department. But I will highlight that we have recruiting events that we're participating coming up as early as tomorrow. We'll be in Auburn tomorrow. On the 15th, we'll be at the University of Montevallo. On the 19th, we'll be at Miles College. April 3rd, Auburn University, Montgomery. April 10th, the University of Alabama. And in June, a future date to be determined, our MPS own hiring event. So I named those off to invite you personally and to seek your full participation, especially in the MPS hiring fair. I've been speaking with and collaborating with our senior communications officer, Ms. Jade, who will help us with some of our advertising to launch online advertising of our own within our district, to utilize our LinkedIn pages, Facebook, Instagram, to get the message out, not always about things not so positive that happen, but things that we can do to boost our recruitment efforts. Jade is actually waiting for information from Human Resources to identify and actually get our billboards up that will communicate our recruitment efforts as well. So to move from that to the two positions that are mentioned on the agenda, the need to make the adjustments to those positions support the work that needs to be done within this recruitment plan and strategy. I've talked quite a bit about, in the weekly updates you get and in my communication in presenting to the board previously, I talked quite a bit about streamlining our efforts and the work that we do to be productive, efficient, and effective within human resources, and making the change to two of the positions, particularly that are highlighted, will do just that in supporting that. The last time we talked about the HR generalist position that we added, the position we actually created in the district and added to the team. We're actually wrapping up interviews this week for that position. We'll have that person on board. To add additional support to the department, let me back up a little bit. We talked about the secretary positions across the district. One of the things that we're dealing with in human resources is the fact that we have 8 secretaries in the department. And the job descriptions are truly not reflective of the HR work that needs to be done. I'm sure individuals in the department, teachers want. I know you all are very passionate about recruitment and the work that we need to do as far as recruitment is concerned. Therefore, you want people that have these skills, abilities, and experience that are reflective of the work that we need to get done. Therefore, I need job descriptions, I need job titles that are going to reflect that. And therefore, we cannot continue to have secretary job titles. And in many instances, job descriptions that do not exist to support that work. Hence the request to add the HR coordinator position that would really support the work that we're doing. It's heavily focused on recruitment, coordinating opportunities and events that will support and create those opportunities for recruitment, support them, be there with us side by side as we are at recruitment events, and to support the onboarding and retention work that we need to do in HR as well. So that is the purpose and the request for that HR coordinator position. The other position is the HR benefits the benefits specialist position. We currently have 2 individuals in HR who are doing that work. However, they are administrative secretaries. That's not a professional title for someone who's doing the work of benefits, especially in a district the size of ours. So that's the explanation for the request for those 2 positions within HR.
You blended those so beautifully. I could not stop and ask for questions. So I'll go back now and ask, are there specific questions regarding the recruitment strategy? Are there questions regarding the recruitment strategy that was described? Okay, thank you.
Will you send those invitations out to the board members? I'd like to go to Auburn University.
Yes, I will send them tonight.
I know how to talk to Auburn students. Thank you.
Are there questions regarding the HR coordinator job description?
Yes.
Go ahead.
You know, it's music to my ears. I love the titles because And Montgomery loves titles, and we come up to them. So I like that you're changing the frame of mind because one of my best jobs was a secretary. I was a good secretary. And good secretaries like to be paid. And Ms. Stacy, now on the job description, I know what it says and it's packed. It is. I know for certified, we allow people to be hired and then work on what they need to. Is that going to be the same for that position? Because that's a classified position, correct? Let's say someone has most of it. Is there any leeway to working on it?
You're talking about the HR coordinator position?
Either
Okay.
or.
So for the benefit specialist position, they can have a bachelor's or an associate's degree.
Mhm.
For the HR coordinator position, the requirement is an associate's degree. It's preferred that they have a bachelor's degree. To be consistent and to be equitable, we would like to hire the individual who does have the associate's degree. If the individual does not have the bachelor's, but they have an associate's, at the time of receiving a bachelor's, they can submit proof of that degree, and they will immediately, upon approval from finance, will immediately be, their salary would immediately be adjusted. If there's an individual who does not have the minimum requirement associate's degree, is that what you're
Yes.
talking about?
I've been in the district 15 years. I'm 6 months away from associate degree. But I have everything else you need. Will I be considered or not?
Priority, that person would have to have human resources experience. If the person has the minimum of 3 years without the degree, they would have to have a substantial amount of human resources experience. And we can have the conversation. If they're already in the district, I mean, that's a retention effort, but we would have to have that discussion. It would have to be more than 3 years.
Other questions? Those questions were basically around the HR coordinator, benefit specialist. Are we good there? Do we have any questions regarding the benefit specialist? Thank you so much, Ms. Murray. Oh, was there a question? Okay. Thank you. The next item, item J, I believe it is the Microsoft Software License Agreement, Dr. Michael Powell. Welcome, Dr. Powell.
Board members, members of the MPS community, good evening. I'm here to give information as it relates to the Microsoft licensing agreement. Currently, our licensing agreement expires Sunday, March 31st. Before you, we have a quote for a renewal, which will carry us through 2024. But just to expand off of a couple of things here with regards to the renewal, the only addition that we made from our current agreement to the next agreement is, as you can see within the quote, 120 A5 Teams licenses. And what does that give us? Folks, can anybody remember back in the fall when we had about 3 or 4 days down with our phone system? We didn't have any type of redundancy. We didn't have any type of what's called BCT, a business continuity plan. And what that is having our primary way of communication to communicate out at the schools in the district, but we had no secondary plan of attack. Now, as a former Army officer, anytime you have comms down, that means risk could potentially increase. And the same applies to K through 12 as well. But with regards to the A5 licenses, it's 120 Teams licenses. If we ever lose our primary way of comms again, we'll deploy the secondary way to deliver and deploy unpublished numbers to the schools so that they could still communicate, so they could still place as well as receive calls. But say again? Okay. Another thing too, I don't want to expand on this, but we're currently underway with a new primary way, a new phone system, which will give us redundancy, called WebEx calling, and I can expand on that at a later date. What the M365A3 licenses do is give every single one of our domain MPS account holders access to the web version of the Microsoft Suite, but it also gives the domain users access to 5 installs of the desktop version of Office 365, your Word, PowerPoint, Excel access. The Defender Endpoint P2 license, what that is our endpoint protection. That is one of our antivirus solutions that we deploy within the district, but we're also transitioning to something else. We're currently testing an environment, our current server environment, to deploy to the rest of the district, hopefully within the next fiscal year. Another thing the other thing that adds value here is for everyone here who's been part of MPS, who's been a teacher or an administrator, if you're retired, I'm just going to rattle off some names here concerning this update. We currently use PowerSchool right now, which is our hosted SIS solution for all of our students. And correct me if I'm wrong. Before that, we had something called iNow. Does that ring a bell? Okay, and before that, there was something that I ran into that's called STI. Does that ring a bell? Okay, because that iNow and that STI is NCS Pearson, SASE XP, and Osiris when I was in South Carolina and Georgia. But these older database SIS that we still maintain for historical purposes, they're still in production. They reside on old hardware. They're still on 2012 R2 server-based applications, and the SQL environment, part of that historical SQL environment to access iNow and STI is on SQL 2014. That server 2012 R2 environment was out of compliance back in October of 2023, so no longer receives updates. But it's a small part of the data center environment that we monitor religiously. The other piece concerning the SQL 2014 edition, that is end of life starting in July of 2024. So this is why this renewal is critical, is the fact that we're going to perform remediation on these historical environments, because from time to time people access those historical environments for transcripts. I know Ms. Holloway over in records, she gave me some more information as it related to iNow and how she leveraged it, as well as the database I ran into before that, STI. But with regards to that, we also have access to the Windows Server Standard Core Edition, which gives us all of our critical updates that we need to patch our current data center server environment so that we can be more compliant and more mature to any type of global cybersecurity threats. Are there any questions?
One of the questions I asked earlier had to do with the fact that we have flipped the way we have our meetings. And I noticed highlighted in yellow, you were hoping to have this approved tonight, but we don't get to vote again until April unless we have a special call meeting. So my question has to do with the fact that when this lapses at the end of March, what kind of grace period is there?
As of Sunday, March 31st, only global administrators will have access to the O365 environment. I only know of 3 global administrators in the district, and one of them is standing before you today.
Okay.
So every standard user in the district will lose access to their data if they use Word, if they use OneDrive, if they use Excel. Part of support services leverages OneDrive. I know that for certain. They're at least testing it.
Why didn't we get this before now? We knew it was coming. I'm not blaming you. I'm just asking why we didn't.
There was turnover in Microsoft. There was turnover where.
So that's not on us. That was on Microsoft.
No, we actually received an extension The actual time that this was actually on the agenda was last month, but the actual quote had the wrong subscription dates. They were 2023 subscription dates instead of 2024.
Also, you said to keep up with the STI, the I-Now. We have people coming back to the school system wanting their transcripts, maybe going back to college and they need them. So will that cross over to what we're doing, and will you be able to hold on to that information for people that maybe graduated 10, 15 years ago?
When you're working on all of these older database platforms with no support, and I don't know of any third-party vendor that is still out there today that will want to update iNow, or for that matter, STI. We can still export the SQL database, and we have to test, and we have to test on newer operating systems for the functionality so that we can still maintain this historical production environment. So with this old legacy type of environment, we have to tread lightly. Otherwise, we might break something.
Thank you.
Madam President, are you ready for comments?
Yes, are there questions?
I was just going to say, in light of the urgency of it and the school being out for spring break, is it possible we can schedule a special call meeting next week to get this done for a few minutes?
That's exactly why I was asking the question, because we don't want it to lapse, for sure. So I appreciate that. And I think we can work with the leadership team and make that happen. Okay. Thank you.
Don't we have something on the 20th already at 1 o'clock?
We have,
We sure do. We have a termination.
we do have an event that day.
Mm-hmm.
We can possibly look at everybody else's calendar and see what we can come up with, but I think next week is definitely the best time because we don't want to run into spring break and we don't want it to lapse.
So I was just thinking, since we're going to, the 20th.
Be on site. And that's definitely a great suggestion. On the 20th, okay. We will look at several dates and make sure it works for the majority of the board. Okay. I have to have that quorum. Thank you. Thanks to each of you. We have a couple of more items. The Rice Advisory Agreement. Mr. Watts.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Brown. Rice Advisory, of course, came up last month and gave a preview of what they'll be doing as it relates to the letting of bonds and serving as our financial advisor for the school district. We was able to negotiate a contract, and we're very, very pleased with the rate and the fees, which is a declining fee based on the amount that we would based on the amount of bonds that we will let. We're projecting it'll run between $117,000 to $150,000. At whatever rate, if we're able to let even more, then it will cap at $200,000. But we're thinking right now it'll go up to about between $117,000 to $150,000, and that is letting between $200 million to $250 million in bonds. So we're very, very pleased with the rate that we was able to negotiate. We kind of beat them over the head a little bit, but they came down, so we're very pleased with them. Of course, they'll also be, and I really appreciate this from them, doing a mentoring and financial literacy for our students. We were able to negotiate that from them, as well as we asked them, since they would do it for our students, would they be willing to do it also for all of our employees? And they have agreed that they will do a Zoom financial literacy and seminars for all of our employees as well, as a throw-in. So we're very, very pleased with that as well.
Thank you.
Could they include the board on that?
Yeah.
I'm sure they would.
We have the same
Yes.
situation with your March 12 original request, so
Yes,
how
we'd like
urgent?
to get started as soon as possible. So if that is possible, if you are going to have a call board meeting, we'd like to include that as well.
Thank you.
I have one more question.
Go right
On the
ahead.
On the first page where it says contract documentation, professional services agreement, it says GPS education services. This isn't part of GPS, right? No.
Says GPA, I guess I'm looking at a
Where
different
it,
document.
so you fix that and we'll vote.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the very first, on the.
That's on the
Letter of transfer.
term sheet we get from Mr. Rudolph. That's the type.
Okay. I'll talk with him about that. I guess you gave me the correct one thing, and but anyway, we'll get that corrected.
I was gonna say, how much stuff does GPS do?
If I could add really quickly
Okay.
also, given the changing cadence of our meeting starting tonight, this will not be a regular thing to happen where we'll have to have a special call meeting or something like that for items. We'll follow the process that's been established.
Well, this was really good. I expected more items out of that will come up.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Watts. When it comes to new business, I know that Ms. Portis has some concerns. The salary schedules you've talked about, are you
I
good?
think all of my new business has been handled.
It's all been handled.
Thank you very much.
Hearing that, there are no additional items on our agenda to be covered. Our next regularly scheduled meeting dates are, date is April 9th at 5 o'clock. We'll have our regular board meeting, and immediately following, we will have our our work session. Thank you very much. And we will definitely announce and publish a special call meeting. At this time, we thank you for joining us. This meeting is adjourned.